I'm Monica Smith, and I am a co-creator of Revel 11. And Joni Parsons, who is sitting back there, wave Joni. Joni and I started Revel 11 5 years ago, and we were hosting monthly speaker series for women. And at the beginning of COVID, we pivoted to an online platform, and since then, we have offered, maybe like 300 virtual events in the past 18 months, if you include our fitness classes. And all of them have been free. And it's been quite a journey that has just been so meaningful to us. And it seems kind of appropriate that today is our first in-person event. So we're so happy to have you here. And this is day 2 of our Aging Well series. Yesterday was Jane Tornatore was one of the speakers on caring for elderly or aging parents or loved ones, which was just fantastic. I learned so much. Today, as you know, is health and wellness. Tomorrow is audacious living at all ages. Thursday is financial wisdom. And Friday, last but not least, is careers in senior housing. So today is the only in-person event. The rest are virtual, and you can check us out on our website to sign up for the other virtual events. And so it seems like it's kind of a momentous occasion to have this be in person, and so we're just really grateful that you all made it. Today also marks my 1-year anniversary. So last year, December 7th, right about this time, I was a couple blocks away at Harborview having a craniotomy for a brain tumor. And so it's just, it's really meaningful to, first of all, be here on this beautiful planet, right? Just to be here. But also to be here with you, sharing this occasion. And let's make the most of it and get it started.
Now to introduce myself, I'm Dr. Sikirat Tinubu Koch, known as Dr. TK. My company in geriatric practice, 6M Geriatrics, provides medical, behavioral health care, and ancillary services to folks in retirement communities and private homes as well. So Murano is one of our partner communities. My background is internal medicine, care of adults. I'm also trained in critical care medicine, care of very sick adults in the intensive care units, and I trained at the University of Washington. And I'm also specialty trained in geriatrics. So I've lived in the area for more than 25 years. I was born and grew up in England. I'm of African descent. My training happened early on in my career. I worked at the Polyclinic. I'm on active staff at Swedish Medical Center. So for example, if any of our patients end up in the hospital, we deal directly with the hospital. I've also worked at the University of Washington, and I'm on faculty at the School of Public Health in the University of Washington. I think it's a great question. Why is aging important? Aging is important because it's a natural transition. And one of the reasons I decided to go into geriatrics later on in my career was because as a physician in the hospital, I was seeing older adults come into the hospital en masse just because they were aging, right? Just because we look on it as an illness, as opposed to a transition. And I decided that I was going to dedicate the rest of my career to spreading the gospel that aging is a natural transition. Things slow down a bit, but people do well. People who age do extremely well and have great, fruitful lives. And so I hope to be able to tell you more about that as we go along. Thank you.
Dr. Jane?
I'm Dr. Jane Tornator. I'm a therapist, coach, and author. So exciting. I actually serendipitously ended up in focusing on elders. I was an English grad I was an English major in college, and I wanted to become a psychotherapist, but I had no psychology background. So I decided to volunteer, and one of the people I volunteered for was Dr. Pauline Voss, who's one of the main, social science experts in Alzheimer's, and I just loved it. And the reason I loved it is because one of her focuses, and the part I loved, is finding the humanity in someone who is literally losing, part of their brain, right? And so one of the gifts, I think, of Alzheimer's and getting older in general, because we can't be the same productive and do all the stuff we're supposed to be valuable members of society, right? Because our bodies are like, oh no, you're gonna slow down and take care of yourself, right? But when we are no longer able to do all those things that we taught we're supposed to do, we learn to, hopefully, love ourselves as human beings. The essence of our value, the essence of our goodness, the essence of our humanness. And when things tend to be taken away as we get older, we can also move more into our innate value. And then once we have it, we can teach everybody else a little younger that they don't have to wait till they get older. So that's why I work with elders.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ann Arnson, and I teach yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. And we'll talk a little bit about all of this and how you don't have to wear tie-dye t-shirts and sit cross-legged to do this. The reason I'm here today is because we live in a culture that doesn't exactly exalt aging. We try to hide it a little bit. Actually, we're told that 70 is the new 50, and so on and so forth. And what I found is that in the wisdom traditions of yoga, of meditation, we're invited to reflect on the fact that life comes in 4 different parts, if you will. There's the first one, which is the student. When we learn things, we grow, we go to school, we meet people, we develop likes and dislikes and goals. The second part of life is called the householder, and that's when you find a job, you get the house and the big screen TV, and you have children, and you have goals, and you're going. The third part of life is called the forest dweller, and that's when you begin to feel a pull to simplify. You're no longer just pulled by those really active, just crazy, the runway lights are on, raise the kids, get the house, pay the mortgage. So the forest dweller. And the last one is called the renunciate, and that's when you're like, to hell with all this stuff. I'm just moving into the forest and really enjoy life and mindfulness. And I find that we give the last 2 stages the short end of the stick. And everything changes. I actually recently got a tattoo. I never thought I would. And what I have tattooed on my body says, keep calmly knowing change. And I'm hoping we can touch on this in a little bit. So thanks for having me.
I'm a stand-up, I like to stand up. How's everyone doing today? I need more energy out of all of you. Let me say, how's everyone doing today? Yes, amazing being in this panel with all of you. My name is Ruben Perea. I am not only the Prime Fit instructor here at Verano, but I have been in the fitness industry for about 16 years. I'm a certified coach, specialist within the aging population, as well as a national fitness presenter. What I do, and it sounds cliche, and I think all of us do this, we save lives, don't we? Don't we? We try to make a difference in every single one of you, because all of you are important, and you have to remember that. And the reason why I got within the special population of aging, is because my dad has necrotizing fasciitis, which is the flesh-eating bacteria disease that ate his whole left arm. And it made me think, I'm like, you know what? At his age, I want to make a difference, not only in his life, but every single person's life I come across. We're at this age, and a lot of you are at a crossroads, right? Some of you are like, you know what? I'm at a crossroads in my life. I need change. I need something different. How many of you can relate to that? Yeah, even me, you know? And that is why I do the work that I do, is to make sure that I make a difference in every single one of your lives. To make sure that we have community. And that's what Prime Fit is about. It's a wellness. It's all about wellness. It's about physical activity. It's about social. It's about bringing everyone together for a certain purpose. And that is why we are all here today. It's purpose, mindfulness, you know? And that's what Prime Fit brings. The wellness opportunity for everyone to make a difference, you know? But like I said, I've been in the industry for about 16 years, national fitness presenter, and we're going to be talking about the importance of fitness, because fitness saves lives. And it doesn't matter if this is today, if this is the first time you get a revelation in your life to make a difference. Because you can start today, and it's going to change your whole life. And I can't wait to talk to every one of you.
So fabulous. This makes me so excited. And did you hear he said revelation? That is why we're called Revel. We like reveling and we like revelations. Okay, so we're going to start with Dr. TK. And my first question is, I mean, you see patients all day long. I'm assuming mostly elderly if you specialize in geriatrics. What are like the top concerns that you're hearing?
Thank you for that question. I see 100% older adults. By the way, it's politically correct now to say older adults. We don't say old people. We don't say elderly. We say,
Great.
or if you want to be really cool, OAs. So to answer your question about what older adults, what their biggest concerns are, I think one of the biggest concerns that I hear, probably the number one concern that I hear is, where do I start, right? You hear so many things. We're now at an age where we've accumulated a variety of medications and presumably medical conditions, some of which we cannot pronounce. So what is really important? I think the first thing that I think about is, what is most important to you as the older adult? What are your goals and preferences? What are your values, right? As we age, certain things happen. So I'll give you context, right? As we age, blood flow decreases to a lot of our vital organs, right? Blood flow decreases to the brain. Sometimes we have trouble with recall. It doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just means that it'll take a few more seconds, right? An older adult doing a complex equation compared to a younger adult, a lot of times it's no different. You know, we do it, but sometimes we have the perception as older adults that we can't do that anymore. But the brain doesn't change in that way, right? So we can do those things. The other thing I think about is the heart. Less blood flow to the heart, which means less blood pumped to vital organs. So for example, the kidneys. Less blood flow to the kidneys means that the kidneys that are responsible for regulating water in our body don't work as well. And then what happens? That sensation of thirst that we normally get to hydrate ourselves is no longer there. And sometimes that puts us at risk for dehydration and bladder infections and other things. Let's take the liver as well. Blood flow to the liver diminishes. Blood carries oxygen, which fuels the cells in every single organ. When that happens, drugs that we take don't break down as quickly. And therefore you have more levels of drugs in your body, right? So one of the biggest things we do as geriatricians is, when somebody comes to us, the first thing we suggest is, we need to do a comprehensive assessment. What does that mean? It means that myself as the geriatrician, one of my colleagues, Sherry as a behavioral health specialist, and others, such as Rebel, sit down with you and say, let's think about you as a whole and think about your age. What medical conditions do you have? What medications do you have? If I were thinking like an internal medicine doctors, I'd focus on that and stop and maybe shuffle your medications or say your blood pressure should be here when it doesn't really matter at some point. But as a geriatrician, the next thing I go to is from a psychosocial standpoint, how are you doing? One of the most underdiagnosed medical conditions in geriatrics is depression. More than 30 to 40% of older adults over the age of 70 or 75 have depression that is not treated. So one of the first things we do in the comprehensive geriatric assessment is ask 2 questions. It's called the PHQ-2 if you ever, the personal health questionnaire. In the last, how have you felt? Do you find that the things that you enjoy doing, you're no longer enjoying them some of the time, more days than the month, all of the days of the month? And then the second question we ask is, how are you feeling in terms of your mood? Do you feel down several days, more days, a lot of days? And from that, we can detect whether there's a reason to move forward and involve others to help us, or whether there's depression that needs to be treated. Because I'll tell you what, in geriatrics, one of the biggest things we do in the comprehensive risk assessment is to evaluate risk for complications, risk for getting worse, risk for a decreased quality of life, risk for a decreased function in life. So I've mentioned the medical component. I've now mentioned the psychosocial component. And the social part is, are you socially isolating? Are you socially functioning with your peers, right? And social isolation can lead to many things, not just depression, withdrawal, but it also leads to people not eating as much as they should. Older adults, 75% of older adults in one study were malnourished. They weren't eating as much as they should be. And why is that important? Again, it goes back to risk. What is the risk of malnourishment? 5 to 10, if you lose 5 to 10% of your weight in any given year, your chances of mortality or death shoot up. So those are the kinds of things when we do a comprehensive geriatric assessment, we're assessing risk, right? So we mentioned medical, we mentioned psychosocial. The third thing I'm going to mention is functional. We want older adults to be as functionally able for as long as possible. And to what Rebel said, exercise is the best and cheapest medicine, right? In older adults, because of that decreased blood flow, including to the muscles, we need aerobic exercises. We need strengthening exercises, right? We need coordination exercises. We need balance-related exercises to reduce the risk of falls, right? If you fall, you'll know what I'm going to say next. What is the risk that something happens next? So, in geriatrics, what we focus on initially is the comprehensive assessment. So I can sit down with each of you and discuss how you are, your quality of life, function, and risk, right? What happens if, right? And how do we preemptively work on that to prevent it as opposed to waiting till it happens? So over and over again, as part of what we do with the comprehensive geriatrics, we do the health risk assessment. Again, it's risk, risk, risk. Because there's so much when it comes to older adults that we can prevent. There's so much more we can do to improve quality, and there's so much we can do to also improve function. You know, and along with the comprehensive geriatric assessment, going back to goals and preferences, what is it that you want, right? As we transition through life, if we get very sick, what are our values? What are our goals and preferences? As a comprehensive geriatric assessment, these are the times that we have these discussions so that when things get worse over time, then we have begun to address those issues. And as your geriatrician, I'm advocating for you, you know, for your family members and also for your loved ones. Thank you.
It's so refreshing, isn't it, to hear of an assessment that is such an integrated approach rather than, you know, say if we just go to a regular internist or something like that. It's so specific. But to be going into the psychosocial and the other areas is really refreshing. It makes me wonder, like when you were talking about the lower blood flow, or organs being dehydrated and things like that. I would love to switch the conversation to prevention. And I know, so one of the things was blood flow, and I do know that exercise is great for that, but if there are other tips that you could share. And then I'm guessing a lot of people in this room are concerned about our brain health. I know I am. Both of my parents died of Alzheimer's, and I know Joni's mom did as well. And so I would love also some tips for staving off dementia.
Thank you for that question. That's a really loaded question. We're learning more and more about dementia, right? And I'll backtrack a little bit. Dementia is one spectrum of diseases that follows, you know, a much broader spectrum, which is, you know, cognitive issues. So as we age, the brain volume shrinks a bit, as I said. The blood flow decreases. That means that some of our actions are a bit slow, but again, it doesn't mean that there's necessarily a problem, right? And in fact, the American College of Physicians does not recommend that we screen for dementia. The reason why they don't recommend it is because, unlike, say for example, the mammogram that we use as a screener for breast cancer, or the colonoscopy, or the fecal occult blood test for colon cancer, we haven't found anything that is scientifically proven or evidence-based to point out, you know, who specifically is going to get dementia, which, as I said, is one spectrum of cognitive disorders. So one of the things we screen for in the comprehensive geriatric assessment is, you know, cognition. You know, we ask you how you are, what you feel your memory, where you feel your memory is, speech or such. If you say things like, well, I'm not remembering things as much as I used to, or things like that, that is a natural transition, right? And how do we recall? We learn, right? And our brains never stop learning, right? So in order to sharpen cognition, one of the things that are great is picking up new activities, right? That's one thing. The other thing that is fantastic is preemptively trying to ensure that your blood flow is well maintained. And again, it goes to exercise, right? And so from thinking through cognition, I think the key thing is if typically other people around you, like family members, caregivers, partners, begin to sense that something is different, right? And from a geriatric perspective, before you take anything for gospel, the one question you're always asking is, what was it like before? What was the prior level of functioning, right? And so when we think about dementia, there are different kinds of dementia. There's Alzheimer's dementia, there's vascular dementia, which you get if you have underlying bad heart disease or bad blood pressure, which over time gets worse and worse. There's Parkinsonian dementia, dementia related to Parkinson's disease. And there are a few other dementias, right? How do we prevent it? Unfortunately, at this point, we don't know, but there's a lot going into research at this time. We also know that certain diseases in general are genetically driven. For example, Alzheimer's dementia, And so we take more of a preemptive and proactive approach, i.e., if there are telltale signs of a decrease in cognition, and we can typically tell that through objective tools. And some of you may have heard about them. One of them is the mini mental status exam, where you go through a series of tests and it's scored. And if you score below a certain point, it's strongly suggestive. It's not diagnostic, but it might be suggestive of dementia. And then that, coupled with history, others are seeing you do things that are so different than what you used to do 6 months ago. For example, wandering at 2 a.m. or things like that. And so what we've become really good at as we try and figure out what causes dementia is we become really good at preemptively managing dementia, because we know and understand the clinical cause of dementia. So we get family members and the person affected ready, right? And then the other thing we do with every disease process is you always want to make sure your medical conditions are well managed, your other psychosocial conditions are well managed, functional conditions, are well managed, medications are minimized as well. And so that's where we are with respect to dementia. There's so much we can do to manage preemptively, and at some point, I'm sure that through research, we'll begin to find out more about dementia. Now, some people who have atypical presentations of dementia, for example, if it comes on really quickly versus somebody saying, well, Mary 6 months ago was doing really well and she was perfectly coiffed, but now she looks disheveled, right? Versus something happened in the last few weeks. Typically, when it's very rapid, then you look for reversible causes. Is there something that I can fix? For example, was there a stroke that was missed? Was there a fall where you banged your head that was missed? A traumatic brain injury? Are there things that could be reversed? The other thing we look at are deficiencies, B12, vitamin D, those things that act to diminish in function or medical good physical activity. So those are the kinds of things we do at this point. We're just aggressively proactive.
Thank you. Don't forget to write your questions down as you think of them. So we're going to move on to Dr. Jane. And I'm going to ask you pretty much the same question that I asked Dr. TK about with your older adult patients, what are the most common issues that you typically get?
Awesome. I like your idea of standing. Two of the main things I see, well, one, I specialize in Alzheimer's, so there's that, but beyond that, there's the loss of ability to live life as we were able to, mostly because of physical issues. And the second is loneliness. Now, you guys are here, right? That's a very good sign, because one of the things that happens, and the pandemic did not help at all. So, and living in senior living facilities is, I don't know for sure, like I haven't read the senior research, but I would bet the older people, thank you for that, who live there came through it a lot better because there were other people around. We are, as I tell my clients, we're dog animals, we're not cat animals. We're here to be with people. We've got mirror neurons in our brain that reads other people and gives us empathy and understanding for what they're thinking and sharing what we're going through. So one of the things I will tell everybody who's not already social is go out and be with people in any way you can. And one of the things that, I don't know why it happens as we get older, but we're less likely to try new things. Like when we're kids, everything's new. Like literally everything is new. But we get to a certain age and we're like, did that, know that, yeah, I don't want to. So we literally get more scared of doing new things because we don't do new things as often. When we have to do it all the time, like when I was a kid, my mom moved to go to grad school and go to another grad school. So I had to go to a new school and meet new friends. Well, we don't usually do that. Now you guys are here. That is awesome. You're already ahead of the curve of many people. And as far as brain health, we use so many brain cells when we're with people. Because I read a study once that said we use more brain cells when we're reading out loud to somebody than when we're just reading. And I read for those of you who spend a lot of time on TV, I've got bad news. When I was in grad school, I read a study, and if you know this study, please, because I can't find it anymore. They found that people watching TV, their brain was closest to the state of death. Right? We're just there like, and literally my mouth hangs open. I can tell my brain is like that. I'm just like, So, but when we read, especially when we read out loud, we're trying to figure out what we're reading. We're trying to say it in a way that makes sense versus the cat jumped over the fence, which is not entertaining at all. And then we're looking for if the person we're reading to is understanding us, if they're liking it, if they're bored. So we're using so many brain cells to interact with that other person. So a great way to exercise your brain is to be with other people. And if you're meeting new people, you can bet your bottom dollar that you're working really hard to try to figure out, who they are, what they're saying, what you can say that might be interesting, what you have in common, what you can learn from them. So being in things like this, meeting new people, super helpful for your brain. And it just makes us happier because we are dog animals.
I love that. Well, I was horrified by the statistic you shared about depression. And so it makes me wonder, is it attributed to loss? And I've been reading more and more about the importance of resilience. And so can you talk a little bit about ways to be more resilient, and are you finding that loss is one of the top reasons why depression? I'm just I'm a little horrified by that statistic.
Yeah. We tend to lose a lot, especially if we don't do the exercise and do the proactive stuff to keep us well. So yeah, we tend to lose a lot, and if we live long enough, we lose people we love. I mean, that's part of, if we're lucky enough to keep living long enough, people we love are going to die. And I'm now, about 10 years ago, I've been kind of vanguard. I was of the first in my cohort to start losing parents. And now all my friends are losing their parents. And then we start losing our friends, and there's a lot of loss. But there's also our own loss of, you know, for many people, especially men, because men in this society are programmed even more than women, that your value is your job, right? Your value is what you do, 9 to 5 or 9 to 7 or 9 to whatever. And so when we give up these things that we were taught give us meaning, and we don't have other things that we bring in to give us meaning, we're just seeing ourselves as diminished, which we are not. But it does take that curiosity and that joie de vivre. I shouldn't say that out loud because I can't speak French at all. But it is that stuff that continues to make our life full. Like, I'll give an example of my mom. She had COPD, she had a stroke, her spine was crumbling, she was having a hard time. And she was an avid gardener. And after a while, she couldn't garden anymore because her body wouldn't let her garden. So what she did is she made a trellis. Well, she didn't make the trellis, she had a trellis made, or not a trellis, but stands. And she did planting in pots. So she didn't have to bend over with smaller amounts so she still could create beauty. And then, as she got even more debilitated, she couldn't really get out of bed. We were lucky enough to have people come in and help take care of her. She would have them plant flowers, because my sister and I, we are not the gardeners, so they would not have done well with us. But so she went to her window and she was looking at the beauty that she had someone help her create. So she was brilliant, actually, and always, even as abilities were taken away, she would find out how to still create what was important to her. She's super creative that way. So that is a super helpful thing to do. We have loss. Loss is a part of living. Can I do a little thing on grief?
Yeah.
Oh, so someone once said to me, it was after my dad died, they said, we only grieve as much as we loved. Right? We only grieve what we loved. So when you are grieving, I'm a queen of reframe, I love reframe. But literally when you are grieving because you have loved. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So next time you're grieving, go, yeah, it's loving, it's awesome.
How about anxiety?
Anxiety. What about anxiety?
Just can you
I
talk
can
about like tips for managing anxiety, why it's an issue these days? It seems like you hear so much about anxiety.
Yeah, is there anybody here been anxious in the past, let's say, 20 years? Never. I know, right? So, our brain hardly ever spends its time in the present moment. Present moment, awesome, is the only time we can truly ever know we are okay. Like right now, we're all fine. We could have chronic diseases, we could have health issues, we could literally have someone we love dying. But right in this moment, we're safe. One of the things I do with my clients a lot is when we're thinking about the future, and, oh, what happens if, because this is what our brain naturally does, is I have them look around and say, are you safe in this moment? And I don't feel safe. Bad things are happening, bad things could happen, it's just not, I'm not happy. I'll say, right, okay, you don't feel safe. But in this moment, are you safe? Are there any tigers around? And then literally I have them look around with their neck. Because if we're in danger, there's no way we're going to be exposing, there's no way we're going to be exposing our jugular, right? We're going to be like this. You notice, if you see people are anxious, they're generally kind of folded in. So, one thing you can do if you're like, oh, I'm feeling kind of, just kind of open your body. This is why exercise and yoga are super awesome. When your body's open, you're using your body to tell your brain, you're safe, there's no danger, there's no tiger here. And what's really interesting about our nervous system, and I'm not the doctor, so please correct me if I don't quite get it right, but for our nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, 20% of the neural pathways take information from our brain to our body. 80%, is it the nervous system or the parasympathetic nervous system? Do you know this?
I'll let you finish it.
Okay, thanks. 80% of the information goes from our body to our brain. We are a brain-focused society, right? This is why Alzheimer's scares the bejesus out of people, because our brain is king. But we are literally built to get more information from our body to listen to than our brain. So, if you're anxious, open up your body. Move your neck back and forth. No tigers. Awesome. Take those deep breaths. Because if you're running from a tiger, which is what our psyche thinks is happening, when we're stressed out, it doesn't go, oh my God, that must be an email. How terrible. It goes, there's something dangerous. You don't know what it is. You have to find out what it is right now. And you get all triggered. So you take the slow breaths, because if you're running from a tiger, you're not going to breathe slowly. And can I share the basic exercise?
Yes?
Awesome. Here. I'm not sure how to do this. Okay. Fastest way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system that I know. If your shoulders are okay, cross your fingers like this. Put them behind your head, the round part of your head. Let your head rest in your hands. Now, keeping your head straight, and if you've got shoulder issues, it's fine. Just do the next part. Keeping your head straight, move just your eyes, and I'll do mirror image, to the left. Until you yawn, swallow, or sigh. And it can take up to 60 seconds. I'm just going to wait a little while. Mine, it happens right away because I do this with every client. So my nervous system is just says, like, you want parasympathetic, which is the rest, digest, heal part of our nervous system. Mine's like, got it, you're safe. And then, once you've done that, once again, move your eyes to the right until you yawn, swallow, or sigh. And notice where your head's kind of going like this. Keep your head straight. And then just for the fun of it, if you can, raise your hands. Because we don't do this very much.
It's a nice stretch.
Right?
Yes.
We don't do this. This just reminds us we are safe and we get to be bigger and we can relax and take up more space, which fights depression.
Thank you so much, Dr. James. That was fun. And I'm still processing your comment about creating beauty and creating beauty with others. And that seems like such a wonderful tip. I just know that, like, even being out in nature or being in an art museum and just seeing beauty seems to help my psyche so much. So I love that. And this is a perfect segue to talk to Anne. Anne, why don't, I don't know if you want to share an exercise or just talk about tips for living more in the present.
I think what I might do is keep the exercise until the end.
Sure.
And I can just lay the groundwork a little bit about, mindfulness and why it's helpful. So for the record, Dr. Jane, you've stolen a lot of my stuff. And what's wonderful actually is it makes me realize, and I hope you sense this already, that this is all connected. While we're sitting in our chairs individually, talking about fitness, talking about, therapy perhaps, and understanding how our mind and hearts are working, and health. And now here I am talking to you about mindfulness. The mind, body, heart, that's what we are. With these organisms, essentially, we're not just a brain, though sometimes I think we spend so much time in our head that we think of as the body as a container to hold the brain, so to speak. Well, we're more like a tripod, holding a telescope. And if one of the parts isn't working well, obviously, the telescope is a little wobbly, and it's really unlikely that you're going to see things clearly. So there enters mindfulness, which in my opinion is the universal panacea. I can't think of anything that can be improved by being more present and paying attention in the present moment. So unless you've lived in a cave for the last 20 or 30 years, You probably have heard the term mindfulness, right? And I brought my show and tell. So this is the cover of Mindful magazine. You probably recognize the coach of the Seahawks. So they talk about mindfulness, a game changer. This is a lovely lady sitting cross-legged in some kind of strange, posture. And it's an advertising for pistachios. They're called the mindful nut. Everybody wants a piece of mindfulness. This is my favorite. This is this hunk of a guy, just looking so cool and schlepped, and he's got the scruff and the cool outfit. And this is an ad for a company called this is the Mindful Monk, the attire for the mindful man. Yeah? Interesting. What is mindfulness? Like in your own words. You hear the word, what comes to mind? Mindfulness.
Awareness.
What's that?
Awareness.
Awareness, absolutely.
Attention.
Attention, yes. Anything else?
Calm.
Focus, calm.
Present.
Presence, yeah. So presence, awareness, calm, attention, right? Well, the dog people, if you have a dog or even a cat, they're in the present moment. They're aware. If you go by, they're like, oh, I love you. Does that make them mindful? It doesn't. Mindfulness is a little more complex than this. And mindfulness is, yes, being present, right now, but it's also being aware that we're present. So you know what we're called as a species? Homo sapiens. Sapiens. The being that knows and knows that it knows. And for the most part, a lot of us live life knowing, but not knowing that we know. And why is that helpful? Because it just gives the beauty of life, the preciousness of it, back to you. And I love the story of the fish, two fish, little guys, fish, swimming. They're swimming, hanging out. And then there's an older fish that's coming toward them. And as they pass, the older fish turns to the two little guys and he goes, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And then he keeps swimming, and one of the little guys turns to the other and he goes, "What's water?" So what this speaks to is that we get lost. We don't notice anymore. We don't know we're in water. We get caught in ruminations, which, these guys alluded to this already. If we're not careful about what goes on in our head, rumination is actually going to lead to anxiety. Anxiety is going to lead to depression. So what if there was a practice, what if there were things that we could do that would allow us to be in our life, to notice the water around us, and then to act with more skill and more wisdom. So there you have it.
Okay, how about those moments when you're in a conversation with your partner or your boss or whoever it is, and you get really triggered? What is an immediate thing that you can do to help yourself?
Besides from using one of my digits?
Yes.
So I'm pulling my notes out because I do not want to butcher this quote, you guys. First of all, who has ever said something or sent an email they wish they hadn't said or hadn't sent? And those of you that don't have your hand up, I'd like to talk to you after this. I'm sure if we dug a little bit, we probably would find something. So are there things we can do when we get triggered? And I'm just going to leave it up to Viktor Frankl. Have you guys heard of him? Wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He was a psychiatrist, Nazi Germany, was prisoner in concentration camps, wrote this beautiful book. But he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response, and in that choice lies our growth and our freedom. And that really is the essence of mindfulness. What happens when you get triggered, instead of reacting by feeling your feet, feeling your butt on your chair, grounding yourself in your body by taking a deeper breath, by having that little tiny moment, that pause, essentially you give yourself what? You give yourself a choice. And all of a sudden you have a choice, you're not reacting anymore, you're responding. I mean, how cool is that? Yeah.
So is now the right time to do a little short exercise, or do you want to save it for the very end?
Do you have one more question for me? Otherwise we'll just go right to the, okay. Who meditates, by the way? Anyone? Right on. So for those of you who don't, let me just put things in context a little bit. So we talked about mindfulness, just being aware that you're aware, with kindness, patience, and sort of a honey, you've got this, kindfulness, I call it. So mindfulness is this capacity that we have to be present, which I hope you surmise is useful, right? Well, how do we cultivate this mindfulness? If you want to cultivate strength, you work out. If you want to cultivate health, you do certain things. If you want to cultivate mindfulness, you meditate. Meditate is the way in which we can every day carve a little bit of time to teach ourselves to feel the water, to know the water, to not be the two little guys swimming going, what's water? So you have to kind of sense down deep that it's useful, and then you carve some time out, hopefully every day, and you just sit for a few minutes and you watch what goes on in your inner and your outer world. And essentially what happens after a while of doing the practice starts to do you, and you don't have to think so much about it, but you realize that you're more present, you're more likely to notice the anxiety turning into rumination, turning into depression. You're more likely to notice the beauty. One of the gifts I got is I'm so much more likely now to notice the little purple flowers by the side of the road. You know the little moments? They're not that little, because most of life is essentially made of little moments, right? So what if you could hold them in awareness more? So mindfulness is cultivated via meditation. And for those of you who have not meditated, you don't have to sit on the floor. You don't have to do all kinds of, weird stuff. Oh, please, when you go back to your apartment, Google meditation and look at the pictures that come up. They're all white women about ages 18 to 22 sitting in flowy, gauzy outfits, sitting cross-legged on the beach somewhere. It's so not true. So let's just do a quick thing together and see what happens. So first of all, look around the room. You may have plunked your butt on this chair, but you may not have taken a look and noticed the window and the treatment, the modeling and the shadow and the light, the way that it comes into the room. You may not have noticed the carpet. You may not have felt, the texture of the chair on which you're sitting. You might even feel as you sit right now, the texture of your sweater, the weight of your glasses on your nose, the coolness of the air on your skin. Yeah? Now what about the soundscape right now? And you're welcome to keep your eyes open, but if it feels comfortable to close your eyes, please do. And take a moment to tune into the soundscape right now. What do you notice? Footsteps, the hum of the HVAC, some water being poured, maybe the hum of traffic. If it were more quiet, you might maybe hear if you have tinnitus, for instance, or you might hear some sounds inside the body. Now what about eyes closed or open still? Feel your body right now sitting. Can you feel the pressure of the seat under your buttocks? Take your attention into your hands. Can you sense how they are connected to a part of your body, perhaps resting on your lap or against each other, perhaps resting on the tablecloth, feeling the texture of the fabric, the back of the chair against your shoulder blades. And then the last thing I'd like to invite you to do is this thing we call the breath, right? Which is actually such a direct connection with We referred to it earlier, your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of you that governs resting, digesting, relaxation, breathing deeply, just it's like a direct connection to it. So notice your breath. This may be the first time today, or maybe for a long time, that you have noticed that you're breathing. A good thing, right? Can you follow this breath from beginning to end? Just this one. And then this next one, from beginning to end. And then when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, please open them slowly. Watch the environment come back into focus. So there's no woo-hoo here. We just used our senses, our sight, our taste. Possibly there's, just taste from what you just ate. Our sense of hearing, our sense of feeling in the body to connect with the present moment. Something that you can cultivate so that it suffuses and permeates your life a little bit more. And I'm going to stop here. If I have one more minute, please, I'd like to share a poem. I find that poetry is just a great way to talk about mindfulness. Let's see, here's my poem. See if you connect with this as much as I did. So this is called Imaginary Conversation by Linda Paston. You tell me to live each day as if it were my last. This is in the kitchen where before coffee I complain of the day ahead, that obstacle race of minutes and hours, grocery stores and doctors. But why the last, I ask? Why not leave each day as if it were the first? All raw astonishment. Eve rubbing her eyes awake that first morning, the sun coming up like an ingenue in the east. You grind the coffee with the small roar of a mind trying to clear itself. I set the table, glance out the window, where dew has baptized every living surface.
Just beautiful. I feel more relaxed, you guys. Yeah. All right, Ruben. Okay. Cardio, strength, balance, what do we do? So help us. Tell us what to do.
Isn't that the big question and on everyone's mind, right? Cardio, strength, balance. Sounds awful, doesn't it? Really quick, I want to have a room check. How are we doing right now? How are we feeling? Relaxed. Well, yes. Well, we should be focusing on all three elements. And I always tell people this. I go, when people go to a gym or they think about fitness, they get scared. The unknown is there. I just don't know how to do my cardio. I don't know how to gain more strength. I don't know how to get more balance. And it doesn't happen until something tragic happens in their lives, that they're like, oh, I need a big change in my life, right? The doctor said, I have to have more balance, so I need more balance, because my doctor said so. Where were you 5 years ago? Why do you have to start when the doctors and your therapist say that? You need to focus on all three elements. Biggest thing with seniors is what? Balance. Fall prevention, right? How many of us are scared to fall? How many of us? Yeah, that's a lot. Even for me, I'm afraid to fall, But the first step is admitting that you need change. Second step is putting yourself in that environment that you can actually have change, all right? According to study, you need 150 minutes of moderate intensity of aerobic activity. You're like, woo, Ruben, that is too much. I cannot do 150 minutes, Ruben. Okay. What about baby steps? What about baby steps? At Murano with the Prime Fit gym up there, I only ask 30 minutes of cardio, of balance training, all right, of strength. But people forget how to have fun. That is the big thing. If there was fun in exercise, would you do it? Ruben, I don't like to sweat. But can you sweat and have fun at the same time? Can you get out of your comfort zone and do something for yourself? If I tell you that all of these three aspects of importance of cardio, balance, and strength will help you live longer, will you do it? Yeah. How many of us exercise at this moment? How many of us exercise? Armo, pick your hand up. You exercise today. How many of us are like, you know what? I haven't started yet, but I'm thinking about it. And it's okay to think about it. Or maybe you just haven't met the right community. And that's the big thing is about, and we talked about the physical aspect, the mental aspect, telling your mind that you can instead of you can't. I feel like a lot of us say we can't all the time. But what if you change that attitude? Because fitness is about attitude. It's about mindfulness. It's about telling yourself you can. And you need people around you, a community. And that's what I create. And that is what we need. You know, the social aspect. The aspect of, you know what, having your girlfriends with you and going to the gym together. Oh, claiming my seat. That is my seat, Ruben. Right? You know what I'm talking about. You know? And what I'm trying to change in senior living, in senior living, what a lot of the things is, here's your 1 pound weight. Here's your 2 pound weight. Up 1 and 2, and down 3 and 4. Boring. What if we have the possibility of elevating your fitness level but still having fun? The possibility of, you know what, testing your strength. A lot of you did this. There was no pain, what was there? A lot of you went like this really quick. But go to, oh, Ruben, my arm kind of hurts. I'm limited in range of motion, but you did it without thinking about it. Right? Picking something up. Grabbing something. Twisting the jar open. You know, all of these are lifestyle changes. And these are little wins. And think about it like that, where you're like, well, I want progress fast. I want to lose weight fast. I want to make sure I don't fall fast. I want to make sure that I gain the muscle so I can look at myself in the mirror and be like, do I look good? It's not going to happen fast, ladies and gentlemen. It's not going to happen fast. I'm going to tell you that. It's going to take hard work. And for you being here means that, you know, you want to make a difference in your life. You want to learn something from all of us. You want to change your lifestyle. But you need to work on all three aspects. It's not just one. There's no such thing as spot training. You're just not going to work, I'm going to just work out my biceps so I look good just on my bicep. You can't do that. It all starts from the core. It all starts from here. Breathing. You know, encouragement from each other, finding that community, you know, and in Prime Fit, we focus on the physical aspect, the brain activity, nutrition, balance, and lifestyle, because fitness is a lifestyle. Fitness is a choice. You have the choice to either do it or don't. It's up to you. It really is. You could choose to live a life in pain, or you could do something about it. And that's the difference. When is it going to click? Does it have to wait until you hear bad news? Or are you going to make a lifestyle change after you leave this room, going and be like, you know what? I've heard from a panel of professionals, and I'm going to change my lifestyle. And it doesn't have to be so fast. It could be mindfulness. It could be talking to your doctor about what kind of change. It could be coming to me and taking one of my classes. Yes.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And I think I'd like to just open it up to anybody who might have questions for any of our speakers. We're running short on time, so I would love to just open it up.
Excuse me. I have a question about Franklin. Comment of this 1 second time period we have. Where does anger fit into that?
Anger arises, and often we react to it because it's a flare up, and we knee-jerk into saying something or doing something. Anger is okay. It's one of the emotions through which we feel alive. You don't go through life without being angry. However, responding to anger is a completely different thing than reacting to anger. And so the Frankl quote, in my opinion, speaks to this. If you feel angry and you recognize the anger, and we talked about how disconnected we are from our bodies, but with mindfulness you can actually feel the signs of anger, the tightening in your chest, the clenching of your jaw, of your hands, and go, oh buddy, calm down, feel your feet, take a breath, and then talk to your daughter-in-law with the 2 puppy German shepherds who are just ripping apart your place, but respond from a place of groundedness, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Anna. Other questions? Ruben, I have a quick question about just how to have fun with fitness. Are you saying like taking classes is a great strategy, or?
When I say fun, I mean coming with the attitude like you're going to have fun. You know, you have to put yourself in situations where, you know, there's a lot of uncomfortable situations in fitness. Like you're like, you know, I'm just not going to. You know, if you come with a bad attitude, you will have a bad attitude, right? But if you go there with an open mind, it could change your life, honestly. But also going to classes, but it's not just the class. It's not about me, and I tell people this all the time. It's not about me as your instructor telling you, and that's a bonus, I'm just an extra. But you can make things fun on your own. You could create a family, a community together and bring it in as one. My classes, we always smile, don't we? We have a good time, we laugh, we bicker. We go, oh no, another one? Yes. But it's the attitude change. It's all about that attitude change of having fun, taking classes, getting out of your comfort zone. Get out of your head. Try something new. Because if you don't try, you don't know yes, you have limitations. But limitations does not stop you into your greatness, right? It does not stop your greatness. You stop it. You put that wall right there. But what's going to take for you to get up there? Like, get over it. Community. Family. You know how many times I have family members call? Is my mom or dad at your class? Yes, why don't you come on down with us? We're having a great time. You know? But it's about, like I said, community, having fun, bringing the aspect. Put some good music. Put some good music. Good music goes a long way. It really does, right? And put yourself in that aspect. All right? And invite people. Invite people to your party, to your fitness. Because you don't know that you may change their lives too. You don't know that. And when you start bringing people start talking, it becomes a bigger and bigger. It becomes a movement, doesn't it? If you like something, why not recommend it? Everyone has fun. You have fun. You have fun. You have fun. Everyone has fun.
Thanks so much. Okay. Oh, there is one question back here from Meg.
I don't know if I probably.
You probably don't need it.
Yeah. Not really a question, but just a couple of notes that I jotted down, and I found it. I've worked in senior housing a long time, but getting something that Dr. Jane said, right? So there's a lot of fear about dementia or falls, and a couple of simple things that are so profound and so easy to
Thank you, Meg. That was perfect. All right, everyone. Well, let's just give a big round of applause for our speakers. Yeah. Hold on, Dr. TK has something to add. Hang on.
So going back to the comprehensive geriatric assessment, it's a great tool. You could Google it, and you could actually complete the form so that you're very engaged in your care. It's called the CGA, or the Comprehensive Geriatric Assessment. And what I would say is, take it into your doctor's appointment next time and go down that list with them, right? And I'm going to tie it to one of the things that I saw. So about more than 40% of this room raised their hands when somebody mentioned fear of falling, right? That is a key part of the comprehensive geriatric assessment. And that's something your provider will ask you. Are you fearful of falling? And every time your provider asks you a question, or when you fill out the form, you find that your answer is concerning, there's another step, right? So if somebody came to me and said, I said, are you ever fearful of falling? And they said yes, I would want to investigate, right? Because again, it's going back to risk. If you're fearful of falling, then there's probably something that is creating that fear. Is it a balance problem? In which case, Ruben comes in. Is it a problem where, as society has done to older people, older adults, just give them more and more medications, more as you. One of the key things that we worry about in geriatrics, in internal medicine we add medications. In geriatrics we peel them off because of the side effects, right? A lot of meds had side effects. And this is in the context of an older adult's blood flow decreasing to the very factory, the liver, that's supposed to break down those drugs, right? So one of the key things when you say I'm fearful of falling, I'm looking at functional stuff. Is it a balance problem? I'm looking at medical stuff. Are you on too many medications? I'm looking at psychosocial stuff, right? So that's one aspect of the comprehensive geriatric assessment, and I would urge you to get Google it, to check it, and do it as a group, as a community. Which brings me on to the next thing, and it's slightly tied to what you said. You brought up anger and great response to management. But what was going through my head was, what's the context? Is it new? Is it more frequent? Is it bothering you? Is it bothering others around you? Is it a symptom of one of the most underdiagnosed problems in geriatrics, depression? And do we have the ability to do something about it such that it's not happening? And I think my point here is there is so much we can do to improve function and quality of life that is not part of the aging process. We think so much is part of the aging process, but it's not. I've seen one of the funniest things I saw, maybe it wasn't so funny to the family members, but I had a 95-year-old gentleman who insisted on riding his scooter down Finney. Now, Finney is a very, very steep ridge. Not just that, he insisted on doing it with his dog, right? So his family brought him into the clinic and said he needs to stop that. This is crazy. And this gentleman was as sharp as a tack and said, no, I want to do it. There was a loss of insight, right? But he insisted on doing it. And he was 95-year-old, very functional, wanted to have fun. So the question was, how could I alleviate the fears of his family and keep him out of danger, right? So the other kicker to this was he was on blood thinners as well, right? And so we had a conversation with him about the potential of maybe, riding the scooter elsewhere, but he was adamant. Those were his values, those were his preferences. So what we managed to do was convince him, number one, not to have the dog on the scooter. Number two, buy a helmet, wrist pads, arm pads, and he continued doing what he loved the best and lived a fruitful life. So I think my point here is involvement with your peer group. Community is so critical, right? Community with engagement, right? One of the things I see in this community when I come is I go into the coffee shop and have a glass of wine, and I see residents with their kids, and then I also see folks from outside who are coming in, who are mixing things up. There's a lot of engagement and a lot of great stimulation in a place like this, and this is so critical to mood disorders, which is underdiagnosed, right? Non-pharmacological approaches, community, engage, right? Share your comprehensive geriatric assessment. If you see me out walking in the hallway, bring it to me and challenge me, right? But the thing is, I would say is, the older brain is no different from the younger brain. You can learn new things every day, right? From a physiologic standpoint, muscle mass, you can increase your strength, right? Challenge your providers. Tell them, de-prescribe, take all these medicines off. I don't need them and I don't want them, or tell me what the benefit is, right? Question, right? And be engaged, right? Thank you.
That was a great conclusion. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming. We so enjoyed seeing you all in person. Yay!